Oh, wrong podium. Still getting used to the changes here. Good morning, everyone. Let me make a few adjustments. Can you hear me now? Good. Well, I'd like to start off by quoting one of my favorite scriptures from the New Testament, since we are a Christian associated church. You know, we can do that, I suppose. But it's one of my favorites. It's real simple. It's behold the Christ in you, the hope of glory. Now, there's a lot more to that. And I can talk all day about that one particular scripture verse. And I know us as lunatics, we could go on forever about just the idea of Christ within us. But I would like to maybe amend it a little bit by saying, behold the Christ in us, the hope of glory. Because when I look out there, I see all this wonderful divine energy that is just longing to express itself in one way or another in a positive, contributory kind of manner as we live our daily lives. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I got that out of the way. And then I have a kind of a funny little story that I say every now and then. It's called God and the Gardener. And I picked this up from a gentleman by the name of Jim Rohn, who was a wonderful business motivator speaker. But he was relating the story about God and the gardener. There was a gardener working out in the garden, and a person walks by and says, "Boy, you and the good Lord sure do wonderful work together." And the gardener looks up and says, "Yeah, you should have seen this place when God had the whole place to himself." So kind of that idea of codependency, we work together with the divine. And so that's kind of a daily thing for me is I start my day in a day of gratitude. Just how, just very simple, just, showed me the path before me. Let me get out of my own way. And hopefully I can do the larger will of the divine within me and within all of us, which is the wonderful thing that we have and we share as students of unity. We're concluding the study from the book of joy, the 8 pillars of joy, and I'll just review them real quickly. Number 1 was perspective. There are many different angles. 2, humility. I tried to look humble and modest. 3, humor, laughter. Joking is much better. 4, acceptance. The world, the only place where change can begin. 5, forgiveness, freeing ourselves from the past. That's a big one. Number 6, gratitude. I'm fortunate to be alive. 7, compassion, which Linda covered last week. Something we want to become. And today I'm going to be speaking on the 8th pillar, generosity. We are filled with joy. We are filled with joy. This is a wonderful book. I don't know if you get a chance, but pick it up. It is really worth your time and effort to expose yourself to what is said in this book. It, in some can even say I think it's a monumental piece of work that was put together by an entrepreneur by the name of Douglas Abrams, who brought this meeting together of the Dalai Lama, High Holiness Dalai Lama, and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I have kind of a side story before I get into my talk about generosity. Several years ago, my wife and I were attending a conference in Kellogg, Idaho, and the Dalai Lama had just been there a couple days before. And I don't know, it was a strange sensation, but years ago in neurosurgeries, they used to do lobotomies on people that were highly, psychotic and whatnot. I don't think they do that much these days. but I kind of related it to a Dalai Lamaism because the people around the community were all just kind of, how you doing? Yeah, man, peace, man. Yeah, they were just, they were like walking on clouds. It was just, wouldn't you agree, Jermaine? The lingering, I mean, the incredible presence that lingered after a visit from His High Holiness, the Dalai Lama, was incredible. I mean, I even sensed it. Even, the cocktail wait, or the cocktail wait, just the guy pouring coffee. This is a wonderful day. It's, it's, it was really interesting. So, um, something like this, where these two respected religious leaders get together, you could imagine the energy that was going on. They were celebrating Desmond Tutu's 80th birthday. No, no, the Dalai Lama's 80th birthday as well. So they brought together all these children at an orphanage in Dar es Salaam, in which this meeting occurred. And they specifically talked about joy, which is a wonderful thing that we all innately have, but yet for some reason we deny it. We deny expressing that joy for one reason or another, maybe just from our backgrounds, our upbringings, our environments. But before I get into that, um, giving a little respect to our Unity affiliation here, our ability power for the month of strength. And I just want to quote Charles Fillmore from the Revealing Word and his definition of um, strength, which is, where is it? What happened to it? It's up here. Ichus. Strength, the energy of God, freedom from weakness, stability of character, power to withstand temptation, capacity to accomplish. Strength is physical, mental, and spiritual. All strength originates in spirit. The thought and the word spiritually express being the manifestation. So that's spiritual strength is very, very important. And we're recognizing that all this past month. Getting into the Book of Joys, basically I want to speak to about three different aspects that it talks about in terms of generosity. Generosity, there's time and money, there's a purpose for it. Then lastly, the spiritual aspect of generosity. We go on to relate in the book of an example of the Dead Sea, where fresh water flows into it, constantly contributing to the waters of the Dead Sea. But the interesting thing is that there's no outlet to the water that's in the Dead Sea. So what happens is that fresh water just starts to turn dank, and it goes bad and goes dead, and it's just non-nutritive. It just doesn't do anything. The water turns dead by itself because there's no release, there's no outlet. In Unity, we believe that it is the law of divine circulation. We release that so that we have income and outgo. We bring things into us and then we release it, whatever the negative thing is, just so we keep that flow up. Because what happens when the flow stops? Well, you get a Dead Sea, or you get a dead, shriveled up person inside that has the inability to express the divine within them, because there's something blocking the release of that divine energy in them, and the inability to express the divine. So it's vitally important that we believe that we can release the negative energies that come our way on a day-by-day basis. It's release toxicities, the negative thinking, the negative self-talk, things like that I'm talking about. Because it's vitally important that we stay fresh and we stay enlightened in order just to express the divine, not only for ourselves, but for those that we come in encounter with, that we have our daily relationship with. We keep that in mind. That's why I always like to start my day with just light my path, light my path. Illuminate my way, because as the divine knows within me, I'm really easy to get off mark, get off trail, or get distracted by so many things that are not important, that I turn to the divine within for guidance, meditation, prayer. I like the definition that I came across about prayer and meditation. Prayer is when we talk to God, and meditation is when we listen, we get a response. And I like that idea. Kind of, ET phone home, I'm waiting for a response. So it's a kind of a two-way street in terms of my codependency with the divine within and without. The Book of Joy, the eighth pillar, generosity. It's really a fascinating, and I think encompasses all the other pillars in a way. It kind of ties things together. We are naturally, I think, generous. We are naturally giving. We want to give. And in that giving, and what's hard for some people to understand is that the joy that it gives us in that giving, as you've heard it saying before, as you give, so shall you receive. Well, I know that that's to be true to one degree or another. It depends on an individual's level of tolerance and resources and whatever their circumstances happen to be. But nevertheless, the dynamic is still the same. But once you give, you receive joy because of the giving. Uh, there's a trend here, and it happened to Jermaine and I one time. I think we were in Salt Lake City, or we were on our way back to Montana. And we stopped at a Starbucks to get some coffee and some morning food. And the lady said, "Oh, the person in front of you bought your items." And Jermaine and I looked at the other. What? And we were just in awe that someone would actually do that. They would, give to an unknown stranger. It was kind of like this. And then we did it a couple of times too, and it felt really good to do that. Another incident years ago, I was at a restaurant having lunch, and I overheard this young couple. They were overlooking at the menu, and they were discussing, "Can we? It's too expensive. That's too much." And they were kind of quibbling over the amounts of things. Um, and so I called the waitress over and I said, "Tell that young couple there's someone here in the establishment that wants to buy them their lunch, and cost is no object." So she went over there, and their jaws dropped about 4 feet down, just the fact that someone would actually do that, you know, random acts of kindness, I guess, is the bumper sticker you see. And I guess I wanted to practice that and see how that worked. And after I had done that, you couldn't believe how I felt. I just felt so joyous that I had the ability to be able to do it, first of all, and second of all, to see their reaction to this gift of generosity that came out of the blue. It was priceless, and it just filled me with so much joy that I was, to see that, and it just reminded me how connected we really are as human beings, as a human family. There's a nice quote in the chapter of generosity that was from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. He said, "We must learn to live together as sisters and brothers, or perish together as fools." And that's so true. What is our prime directive? Is to really care for one another, have compassion for one another. And in generosity, expressing our generosity, we make that more realized. And it's a powerful aspect of our humanity that we can either exercise or not, but it's still within us. It's like an innate power, being generous and giving. I'm speaking of the the eighth pillar of generosity. You break it down into three aspects. One is time and money, other is purpose, and the last is spiritual generosity. The first aspect, time and money, relate to a story about an individual who who started from nothing, grew up in poverty, and uh, developed a $70 million empire in the stock market. And during that time, he had pledged $30 million to a charity. And then the stock market crashed, and he was basically wiped out. The only thing he had left was to pledge $30 million. But he realized that there was something more important than money, and he refused to use that $30 million that he had pledged to charity and kept it in charity. And then he went on to go on and reestablish his businesses, and he did okay. He recovered just fine. But to him, the generosity and the giving of those $30 million was more important than his own welfare. And this is something that really speaks of his character in terms of wanting to give and, care for other people in organizations or whatever his cause was. And I thought that was a pretty remarkable story, that he would not, use that $30 million, but kept it as a charitable contribution despite his economic hardship. Pardon me? You know who he is? Like, well, let's just say he's the guy that he's doing okay now. Another story, another time and money. Well, actually, we'll move into purpose. People are so compassionate, can be so compassionate. They have to do something right now. They see it, they want to take action. Well, the Resmond Desmond Tutu related this story about there was this woman in one of the townships in South Africa, and of course the poverty is just incredibly rife there. People living under cardboard and tin and just horrible living conditions. And the spread of disease is very rapid. HIV, a lot of orphaned children because of HIV were just wandering around townships. And this one woman said, "That's it. I can't take it anymore." So she started adopting these orphan children into her own home. And at one time, she had something like 100 children living in like a 3-room house in the township. But you know what happened? There was this response, and the community said, "Well, look what she's doing." And all of a sudden, said, "Well, let's help her out with some food, or let's see if we can find some fresh water or medicine." And it had this kind of snowballing effect where the community got together and built like a dormitory for these orphan children under her care. But she didn't do anything. All she did was her passion. She was a purpose. I want these children need to be taken care of now. It wasn't like, well, what can I do, and throw up my hands. It was one of these acts of generosity of her giving of her own time and the passion of her purpose to provide for these orphan children. So that's really a wonderful example of what can happen when a person really just kind of does it. Just where the rubber hits the road and they take action to make a difference, large or small. That's what's incredibly powerful, is the aspect to understand that each and every one of us have that ability to do that, to see something that can be righted, can be done, that in the local basis, something that I think I could volunteer for that, or I think I can give some of my money for that, or I really feel strongly about this particular person's organization or whatever it is, help contribute to have those people that are in need better their life through the act of generosity. This reminds me of a story. Well, actually, it's not really a story. Well, it's a story, but it actually happened. Um, I used to be in a band. I was a band leader by the name of Steve. Um, and he went on to move to Nashville to pursue his career as a songwriter and as a country artist. And of course, him and a million other guys do that every year. They roll up in their old beat up cars and their guitars, and they have hopes of, being successful in the music industry in Nashville. So, like many others, he struggled, because there was a lot of competition. So he did whatever he could do to provide for his family. Well, one day, I think he was delivering, I don't know, tapes or records to a distributor or something like that. And he pulled up to this one office building where he did a lot of work, a lot of deliveries. And there at the front door, there was one of his friends that worked for the company had numerous bags of groceries out in the front steps. And Steve said, "What's this?" And she said, "This is for you." And he said, "What? What do you mean it's for me?" Well, let's just say it's a tradition amongst struggling artists in Nashville that we pass it on. Pass it on. And Steve said, "Pass it on. That's a great title. That would make a great song." So what did Steve do? Being the writer that is, he wrote this song called "Pass It On." And when you know it, that 2 albums later, Willie Nelson put it on his album. And Steve was able to receive royalties from that album. And, it furthered his growth in the community. He went on to become a minister of his own church called River of Faith. It was a little church north of Nashville, a place called White House. And he had a wonderful congregation there. But it was just a wonderful story about the fact that here he was, not expecting that act of generosity, but someone was passing it on. And I meant to get the lyrics to recite to you because it basically talks about sharing, passing it on. And I think it's a wonderful idea. We all have the ability to pass it on in some capacity or other, to share our abundance, share our, the prosperity that we experience. Because also, we can be on the other end of it too at one point. Like I'm in need and be in need, and all of a sudden someone turns and says, "Hey, I can help." And that's a wonderful thing that we know that we can do that. And we can identify those individuals or situations that need our help in terms of acts of generosity. So passing it on is a part of that purpose, a purposeful act of generosity. The things that the Reverend Desmond Tutu and His High Holiness the Dalai Lama, what they do is they are generous in spirit. There are many other wisdom traditions on this planet that feel that giving is an integral part of spiritual practice, not necessarily written in their own literature, but emphasized or encouraged. The Muslim faith has a certain tenet about giving, along with the Buddhist and the Hindu tradition have certain tenets about giving. And the Jewish tradition, there is a tradition of giving. And of course, in Christianity, we call it charity, Christian charity of giving. So it's like our precept is 10% of everything, that we have, fruits, and we tithe that 10%. So it's kind of like an automatic giving, but it goes way beyond just that in terms of a structured giving, in terms of being associated with any particular religious order. It's just the idea that we are our brothers and sisters keepers in a lot of respects. That to give, is to receive. It's a blessed thing. It's like I look at it as like the hands and feet of God working in the community or spiritual community. Well, that's what Reverend Tutu and the Dalai Lama do. They go and they encourage people, through spiritual help. They either through their teachings, through their wisdom. Um, the entrepreneur who put this book together, Douglas Abrams, talked about a moment when he was talking to the Reverend Desmond Tutu, and all of a sudden it was like he was the most important person there. In other words, despite all things that were going on, his attention was strictly on him. He had that capacity to be able to just listen right there in the moment. And I think that's true, of course, with the Dalai Lama, that they are so present in the moment that they give their full attention to whatever the need is in that moment. They are definitely spiritual pillars for generosity of spirit. They give so much, despite the hardships and the challenges, my goodness, that they've gone through in terms of their lifetimes and the struggles of their people and their culture. Instead, but still, they come back into that reserve of joyfulness. I like the quote Desmond Tutu on where he talks about his idea of, where is it, of generosity. Excuse me, should have bookmarked that, but basically, I like the image of what he said about the fact that your joy is like an oasis, an oasis of stillness. That when you are joyful and expressing joy, that people want to be around you. You're putting out a higher vibration. People feel safe, they feel comforted. That's what the spiritual contribution of generosity is that people just feel good. I don't know what it is, but I feel so good being around this person because they are so giving. And in that giving, I feel like I'm being fed or I feel safe, whatever the condition is. That's that spiritual generosity. And it's so strong in these two individuals. Um, we're doing on time here. So there's a couple of questions at the end of the book that it'd be nice to consider about generosity. It says, and we are filled with joy, whether we know it or not, we know it or not at times. But it's there. It's just waiting to be tapped into, waiting to be passed it on. And I'll quote here: generosity is so important in all the world's religions because it is no doubt expresses a fundamental aspect of our interdependence and our need for one another. Generosity was so important for our survival that the reward centers of our brains light up as strongly when we give as when we receive, sometimes even more. And the question is, how does it feel to be generous? You remember how that feels when you're generous? Have you ever stopped to examine the physical sensations of being generous? I have. And it takes you right into that joyous feeling of giving. Do you think that it's true that it's better to give than receive? And that depends on where you're at in terms of how you feel about your own generosity. Start where you are and realize that you are not meant on your own to resolve all these massive problems. Do what you can do. And that's related to that taking action. Start where you are, whatever it is. Be very simple as helping someone across the street, picking up a piece of trash, whatever it is that fulfills your sense of generosity, of giving on that particular moment, particular situation, individual person that you're relating to. Do what you can do. Now, is this guidance helpful when you're feeling overwhelmed by the suffering and the needs of the world? There was an example in the stories of generosity that there was a letter sent to the Dalai Lama. She says, I want to help, but I'm just burned out. How can she was trying to solve the whole, taking the whole weight of the world's problems on her own shoulders. And in doing that, it incapacitated her. She couldn't act because she felt the weight of the world on her shoulder. But she says, no, you have it all wrong. You just have to do what you can. The problems will always be here. It'll be for the next generation to figure out. Maybe we screwed things up, but there's going to be other generations that'll find a solution to these problems that we're facing right now. But do what you can right now. Don't think you can take on the whole world, because the whole world will take you on and you can't do anything. And it says, give the world your love, your service, your healing, but you also can give it your joy. Give it your joy. Were you surprised by this teaching? That the expression of our personal joy could be transformative? I think how powerful that is. That when you express your joy to someone else and they sense that, and maybe they sense that for the first time, it can be transformative for that individual. And they go on to do other great things in terms of tapping into their own generosity. And finally, why do you think we are skeptical that one person's actions are not enough to make a difference? How can they be? But it makes a difference. The small things make a difference, no matter what. It's the fact that you're engaged in the care, concern of your fellow human being. We're all connected. And so I like what Reverend King said, we learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or all perish as fools. And so obvious, it seems. Sometimes the obvious is is hard to understand because we can't comprehend the obvious sometimes. It's like common sense isn't all that common. Okay. Well, anyway, Book of Joy is a wonderful publication. I would even say that I would say it's a monumental work. And I think it behooves people to look into it and understand it and then absorb it. What's the saying? Learn it, love it, live it. Because it can make a difference in terms of how you live your life, what kind of day you have in terms of expressing a more enlightened being that you are, and also sharing that enlightenment with others who are hungering for the same connection, and that's with our divinity in the Christ that I behold in all of you. So thank you for listening, and namaste. Have a good day. We're going to do a little meditation now, kind of time to come into the presence. So I ask that you find a comfortable spot where you're sitting, if you're not comfortable already, and allow the presence to come in deeper into yourself. Take 3 deep breaths. 1, Exhale. 2. Exhale. And 3. Exhale. Mother, Father God, we are so thankful for this day. This day is our day to have you revealed more inside of us. Give us the ability to express our generosity in ways that make a difference. Small ways, large ways, everything in between. We know through your divine guidance, we will always make the better choice. We understand the light before us. We understand how your presence would like to be expressed in this world. Our compassion, our empathy for our fellow human being is one of our prime missions here on this planet. We can make it a better world, and we are making it a better world by revealing the Christ within us all. If not today, when? Now is the time. We are thankful for the gentle voice within inside us that leads us to our highest good. And in that highest good, much more of you is revealed. And we are so thankful for that. We abide in your presence. We are nourished by the restful nature of being in your presence. That we garner our spiritual strength to go forth and be the true Christ within us that we are meant to be. This is our work. This is our purpose. These are our blessings. We are so thankful for your generous spirit, Lord. And that we are truly thankful. So it is. So it shall has been. And so it shall be. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I feel better. I hope you do too. But blessings to you guys. Yeah, generosity. Pass it on. You can do that. It's one of those tricks in your tool bag, your spiritual tool bag. Remember those cartoons of his Felix and his magic bag? It was back in the 50s or 60s, but he had this magic toolbox or whatever it was. And if he was in a stressful or challenging situation, he'd just reach out and pull out the appropriate tool and fix things. Yeah, fix the cat, yeah. Oh, was it? Oh, I don't know about that. But, the ability that we do have the ability to be able to change things if we so desire. So, in that said, let us say our prayer of protection. Ooh, excuse me. I'm getting a security alert. Are you there? Hello, hello. There we are. Okay. Together, light of God surrounds us. The love of God. The love of God enfolds us. We are love. The power of God protects us. We are power. The presence of God watches over us. We are present. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. We are one. And let us sing our peace song.